Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Category Visionaries. Today we're speaking with Elad Ferber, CEO and co-founder of Synthpop, a healthcare technology company that's raised over $8 million in funding. Elad, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Brett. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Super excited for our conversation here, and let's go ahead and jump right in. Talk to us about what you're building today.
So what we're building at Synthpop is really a system of composable intelligence. I'll unpack what that means, but it's artificial intelligence agents and capabilities for back office functions in healthcare. Because, I've been in healthcare for the past 10 plus years, and I really believe there is a real opportunity to transform healthcare through administration, actually. Clinical takes time. There's a lot of barriers there we can talk about, but I think the way to deliver better care, faster care, more affordable care, which we definitely need in our country, is through innovations in AI and apply to administration and back office functions in healthcare. I think that's the biggest opportunity right now, and that's what we do.
So you said 10 years in healthcare. Was that always like this master plan? Like when you were young, did you want to go into healthcare, or where did that entry point begin?
I was working in aerospace for the previous 10 years, and I always thought that it would be really fun to kind of change things up a little bit. And I was thinking, okay, what could I do? I'll bring the most impact, can help me lead the most impactful life. And I think healthcare was definitely on the top of the list. And I wanted to just choose what we dedicate our time in this life for. And I thought that could be actually a pretty worthy endeavor.
As you started to dive into healthcare, what's a surprising fact or thing that you've learned that people like me who aren't in healthcare would be like, no, I don't believe that. Like, how can that possibly be the case? Have you encountered anything like that just kind of blows your mind?
Yeah, well, when we built our first company, Spry Health, I was maybe personally naive about the American healthcare system. I just moved from Israel in 2012, and I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to build this amazing healthcare company, and we're going to show we can make an impact on patients' lives, and we can save money, and they'll come. Like, everybody's going to use it. It's going to be amazing. And it's just was so hard to get alignment from all stakeholders. Like, value-based care is almost like it's just so hard to make it work with solutions that drive outcomes, or especially if those outcomes take a long time. And I think that was a realization I've had over the 8 years that, we're leading Spry, and then we sold it. And also through those years of commercializing that technology, it was just astounding to see that even if you build a great product, it's just not trivial. And the stakeholders are not always aligned with implementing it.
As you moved into building your second healthcare company, what was the big lesson that you walked away from with that first company?
I was just thinking, my co-founder Jan and I were thinking, how can we build the fastest growing healthcare company? What does that look like? And I was banging my head against the wall for years with trying to sell to big health systems and to payers. And the sales cycles were long, and you had to do a pilot. And then, after the pilot, you need to do a study. And then, it takes 18 months to even get a pilot up and running sometimes. And I was really thinking hard, okay, which verticals, who to sell, what to sell, how to position it in order to really try to have SaaS-like growth in healthcare. Is that even possible? So that's maybe the biggest learning I've had from my time in Spry, is kind of how to thread the needle in a way to allow that to happen.
How's it going? Did that happen?
Well, it's been going incredible. 6 months in, we sold our first product, and we had a first patient that gained value and had faster care delivered because of our agents. Now we're like 17 months in, not even a year and a half, and we're seeing hockey stick-like traction. So we're nationwide with a few vendors, category leaders. We've seen over 1 million tasks our agents reason through. We passed the 1 million mark just last month. So it's been incredible. I think it's true. And we see that also in other verticals in back office functions. once you prove that the AI can actually do the work, the adoption is just like, okay, yeah, let's just do that with AI from now. And that's what we're seeing. And it's just fascinating to witness and to experience.
I've spoken to a lot of healthcare founders. That's not very common to have, value being added within 6 months. What did you get right there? How did you make that happen? Like the normal timeframes that I hear are like 24 months plus. How did you
Yeah.
do it in 6 months?
So it was all about engineering that fastest growing healthcare company thing. And we're still trying to achieve that. Of course, we're far from it, but it's a worthy moon to shoot for. So there's actually two key things that happened. One is I spent some time before starting the company as an EIR in a venture fund, helping create a thesis around using pharma data and AI to accelerate go to market in a few pharma use cases. And through that journey, I got to interview like 80 clinicians over various verticals in healthcare. And on top of that, I've had my own back then, like it was 10 years of experience in healthcare delivering products. So I had that really great bird's eye view opportunity right when like ChatGPT became like a thing and all of those LLM opportunities are unlocked. So I was very lucky. That's one thing that happened for me. So I could actually try to thread the needle and I had enough information and add some visibility. I think the other thing is I promised myself and Jan and investors who back then already we had investors lined up saying, hey, we'll fund you in your next company. We almost don't care what you want to build. We believe you can do it. And so whenever you want to check, here's your terms. If you want it, come and get it, which was fantastic. But my answer to those investors were, until I have a paying customer, I'm not going to take that money. And so when we founded the company, incorporated after we've had our first few customers lined up. And so we knew that what the product that will drive value is. Of course, today is like, I had a few iterations, but I think we knew what we wanted to sell. We knew what we wanted to build. We knew what the core capabilities are. And that's how we got started.
Talk to us about the category. You had mentioned category there. You're a category leader. What's the category?
Yeah, so there's a few categories that we operate in. One of them is durable medical equipment. One of them is diagnostic testing facilities, fertility, wound care, home health. These are we're active today in, but there are a few other categories that are really interesting as well. And I think what's unique about some of those customers, some of those opportunities is that there is a high level of consolidation happening in those verticals. So people are very operationally minded. They want to get better financial results. There is a lot of care happening, and it's care that's happening outside of the traditional health systems. And traditional health systems, they're slower to adopt new technologies because they just have so many barriers adopting innovation on top of them from regulatory and their internal structure and decision-making process, et cetera. But I think those verticals are less encumbered in healthcare, and we wanted to target those first. And so, yeah, we were able to know where to focus, create a value proposition, and really go all in. And we're deploying into more categories, new categories now. So we're trying to expand as quickly as possible because the opportunity is just unprecedented, I would say.
And what's the software category there, though? Is it back office? What is the software category?
So we actually say to our customers and to everyone who would listen that we don't sell software, we sell
Mhm.
labor. It's not the same category of expense for our customers.
Hmm.
Because when you delegate a task to one of our agents, you don't need to do it and you don't need to do it anymore. So if you have, for example, some of the tasks we have, we place a phone call to a payer and we wait on the line for an hour until somebody picks up and we navigate the phone tree. And then we ask, okay, hey, we have this patient. They're about to get services in our clinic. What is their financial responsibility? What's their out of pocket? Is it covered? Does it require prior authorization? If so, we can submit it. Our agents do the whole thing. If we miss even one thing, and of course we analyze transcription afterwards, we know we don't charge our customer at all. So we charge if you don't need to touch that anymore. And you have a fully pristine record of what was said, of the reference number, of the confirmation number from the insurer, of all of the dollar signs that the patient needs to know to make a decision. Like we automate that, we take it away from you, or you don't pay us. And I think that's why you treat us as a customer like an employee or like a contractor, right?
Mhm.
So, and it saves work. So it saves real work. It's not like a SaaS product per se.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode. Every time I interact with the healthcare industry, I just walk away frustrated. This is speaking as like a consumer, as a patient, and it's like hard to just not think sometimes like it's fucked and it can't be fixed. That's like how it feels, at least, because like it's just not gotten any better. Like if anything, it feels like it's getting worse and worse. Like why is it so broken? And then like what gives you hope that it's going to get any better? Like for people like me, because I think there are a lot of people out there who kind of have that same sentiment. Like how should we be thinking about this? Why should we be hopeful as well?
Right. I mean, I'm not sure I have all the answers because I see it only from my little vantage point, right? If you ask the same question to someone like Mario Schlosser from Oscar or other entrepreneurs with different vantage points on the industry, you'll get different answers. I think what I see trying to deploy some of those medical technologies out there and help patients, and also now trying to help patients with better care, I see like a few major issues on the administrative side. So number one is the process to get from a referral of a patient. Let's say you're being referred to a surgical center to have an operation, or you're being referred to a durable medical equipment to get a wheelchair. The process is reasonably opaque, whether you as a patient are even eligible for that service, whether the provider is going to get paid, how much is it going to be out of pocket. And because money is so important, I mean, everybody needs to get paid. I mean, that's their lifeblood. And I respect that a lot, right? It's not beyond the cynical. I think everyone needs to get paid for their work, and that has to flow. But that's just so complex, so complex. And so order to cash, what we call in our kind of little turf, that can take 200 days. That's insane. So imagine just the financing and the overhead that the providers need to roll with. They need to suffer that. And that hurts their margin significantly and makes it harder for them to operate. On the patient, because of that, there's now onus of like, oh, you need to wait. You need to wait until we figure this out. And you know what? We'll call you. Wait for our phone call to schedule like your appointment. Like it's ridiculous. Imagine if you can automate all of that. Like in a minute, you're being referred from your physician, you're in your clinic with your PCP, and they say, hey, Brett, I think it's clinically reasonable for you to have this treatment. A minute later, everything checked out already, and all the paperwork has been filed. Everything has been magically transformed. There's so much logic. There's like maybe 100 little tasks that our agents can do to make it, but they can make it so quickly versus humans transitioning. And, you have stacks of paper literally like changing hands. You can make the decision as a patient right there, and we can get you scheduled already. So this is a huge difference. The provider can get paid, or at least has the confidence that they'll get paid. And we all already filed a claim with your insurance. Like, so all of that can be so much quicker. And that's so many downstream effects. So one downstream effect is this order to cash number, like 200 days, can be much shorter. The providers can get paid quicker. Their margins look nicer. It's easier for them to operate. They can provide better care. Number two is a lot of the times when your PCP sends you to a treatment somewhere else, something is missing. That's one of the biggest things. Like the clean order rate that we see is like 50% because the providers don't always know exactly what documents the insurance provider would want to see. And so it's instant, and immediately they get feedback. Hey, you forgot this piece of paper when Brett is still in the office. Oh, Brett's file is still open in front of me. I can actually fix it immediately. Whereas if it comes in 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, who? Brett? Okay, let me pull them up whenever I have time at the end of the day. So if this like instantaneous flow that we can unlock has really interesting downstream effects that we start seeing now with our customers that make the patient care eventually so much better. And I think that's one of the key issues that we see across the industry. But that's, again, from my vantage point, I think there's so much to fix, right? But this is one place where I think can make a difference.
I'll have all the answers someday because I ask every healthcare founder that I bring on that question. So someday I need to go and like pull that together and put it into an article. I think it's interesting to hear from those, different perspectives. Let's switch gears now. Let's talk a little bit about marketing. So what was the marketing strategy that you've been running so far to get to that 1 million milestone? And then how is that marketing strategy going to change as you work towards the next milestone?
That's a great question. I think it's important for us to be out there. So I go to conferences, my team goes to conferences, because that's where we see the providers we serve or want to serve. And that helps us just, just sitting there. I was in North Carolina last month, just sitting there and having, lunch with a provider. It doesn't have to be my customer. It's fine. I'm super interested to hear what's going on. What's their day-to-day like? To be honest, that level of interest, and if we have speaking engagements there and we help sponsor those organizations locally, that's big for us because we want to make sure we support the provider community that we serve. I think that's the best marketing for us. To be honest, things like LinkedIn posts and things like that are great too, but almost like it's great for a different reason. I see our marketing and branding as there's a few customers for that, or a few ICP or targets. One is, of course, customers, but that I feel is best served in person and through networks and working with people who are respected in the industry. The second is our employer brand. We want to make sure we attract the best people in the business. And as a company, we are reputable. So that's really important for us too. And I think number 3 is also making sure that we're out there for things like financing and investors, and we can continue to gather interest and are riding the hype that I think is real of the AI revolution that we're on. So I think that's also really important. And so the messaging we have across our platforms is that's the idea. Where can it take us from here? I'm not sure. To be honest, marketing is only as good as the business it advertises. So we're focusing always on the kind of core metrics of our business, how we can serve our customers better. And I think that goes also like word of mouth. And I think that's really the best of the best, like way that we can create a brand as unknown company, maybe initially, right, when you start, but we're all known healthcare executives. So we brought our networks with us, and that's really big.
Now, what about the employer brand? Can you unpack that strategy for us and what that looks like?
Yeah, well, I think that will only emerge soon because so far we have a team of I think 20 now, and 100% of the team is people we knew through first degrees, me or Jan, that we worked with in the past, or one of our initial founding team members. So we didn't even have one job posting out. But from my experience at Spry, it's really important as we want to try to scale up, we're going to start hiring outside our networks. And because of that, I want to have a track record of hey, we are open about what we build. If you work with us, you can show your work. It's not going to be some siloed in some secret somewhere, but actually it has meaning and it has impact. We want our employees to feel like they're doing something meaningful, which they, of course, know and feel every day from the customer. But it's another element of being able to build that. Also, I think we are proud of what we stand for. So it helps us communicate that externally. And yeah, all of that is really helpful when you build a company culture, I think. And our customers also, I think, align with that to a large extent.
This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Co., a marketing leader's best friend in these times of budget cuts and efficient growth. We help marketing leaders find, hire, vet, and manage amazing marketing talent for 50 to 70% less than their US and European counterparts. To book a free consultation, visit globaltalent.co.
What about positioning? Maybe we can go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah.
At the start of the call, you had mentioned positioning. When I've done positioning exercises, those are hard decisions to make because it's kind of deciding those different paths. For you, were those different paths? And then, why did you choose the path that you went down?
Yeah, it's really hard. And by the way, I actually am not sure that we're optimized right now or have the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so hard to break out of the noise. There's 50 healthcare AI companies out there probably active trying to sell. Our customers are being sometimes bombarded by requests, and we found ways to differentiate our services and differentiate ourselves. It's a continuing battle because of the noise level that we live in. And it was low a year ago, but now it's starting to kind of amp up a little bit. So I think the strategy has to evolve with that. I think that because we are very vertical or category specific within healthcare, that helps us because we can be very focused. And so our positioning has been really around the composable aspect of our AI agents. So we're able to meet the customer where they are. So I really believe that, and that I think we're different from almost anyone I've seen in the industry in that we have an enterprise service model. And we say, hey, customer, we know that AI is this new thing. We don't expect you to bet the house on us on day one. That's fine. But here is a composable system that can actually fit the mold that you've created over years of hard work with your human team. We can work alongside your team. And so if we can take the workflow that you've built and our AI can just follow that, you don't need to do something new. You don't need to change your system of record. We can meet you where you are. That significantly lowers the barrier to entry and helps us move forward. And I think that's really important for us to explain because I think that's a big competitive advantage. Another point of positioning is that we are experts. Again, we're all experienced healthcare executives. I like telling our customers and in marketing or whatever I speak is that if you work with our company, I'll be the least experienced person in healthcare that you work with. I have 10 years, it's like fine, or 10 plus years. Our customer success manager is Chip Smith. He was a CEO of a provider organization for 15 years and he sold it. And then he was an executive in a big provider organization for 5 years. So like this is a guy who understands how your business operates from within. Your operational metrics, your cash flow, how you recruit and build your team, how you retain them, how much you pay to your vendors. He knows all that. He lived all that. And that's something so deep that I think that if a person like that is your customer success manager, that's insane. That's such an amazing way to deliver value to a customer and build trust. And I think that goes a long way. So I think both of these at the same time, like one, meeting the customer where they are, but also backed by the understanding of what the customer experiences day to day in a very deep way. I think that really creates a very interesting value prop for a customer to say, you know what, I think this might work. And it's actually low risk for me to try. Let's go. And then once they understand, oh, holy crap, look at what it's doing for us. Okay, let's turn it on nationally. And that's exactly what we see happen now. And so I think that's really a magic moment that's happening and across the board.
Something you mentioned there, there's 50 plus companies in healthcare that are using AI. I've probably talked to a lot of them on the show, I think, at this point. And it's not just healthcare, it's every industry, right? Like most of the conversations I have on this show, they're talking about AI, they're using AI. So my question there is like, in 5 years, do you think we're going to be using that term even? Like, is that going to be part of the message, part of the positioning?
No, because what does it matter? I mean, it's almost like it doesn't matter that it's artificial intelligence. It doesn't matter. It's intelligence. It's blocks of intelligence that are scalable. And that's what matters. And we call it, even internally, we start calling it composable intelligence. Like my co-founder, Jan, I mean, he taught classes at Stanford about scalable systems and large language models. And it's really about the composability that all of a sudden you have these reasoning engines you can put in different places and you can build this amazing chains of intelligence from that can actually get work done. That's what it's about, I think, across the board. And in 5 years, we'll just have faster, better, cheaper models. Maybe there'll be some big step function jump with some AGI or whatever capabilities. To be honest, I just think that the opportunity is so big that doesn't have to happen for the market to completely transform in 5 years. And I think that will be the understanding that it's really intelligence. The artificial is like, doesn't matter much. It's an extension of us.
On that idea of composable intelligence, is that eventually going to be the category that you're in? So if people say, what does Synthpop do? Would you say, oh, we're a composable intelligence platform? And then ideally in 5 years, people would be like, oh, thank God, I've been looking for one of those. I've been evaluating vendors, you're top of the list. Like, is that the idea that you're eventually working towards?
Yeah, totally. Because what it means is that we can actually do anything, which was kind of a scary concept to grapple with initially. Because if you can do anything, can you even do one thing well? Like, what are you? But I think the idea of composable intelligence means that we can expand to more workflows. Like, and we're discovering that every month we have like a customer come to us and asks us to do something that we didn't do before. And now we need to caution ourselves, right? I mean, we don't want to become like a custom shop. We want to actually demonstrate to the market, to our investors, to our shareholders that we built something that is truly scalable. So it's not like a consulting shop, but the fact that we're learning about new ways to harness the core building blocks that we've built in some really interesting way that we didn't think of, that's fantastic. And that's, I think, one of the key drivers for our growth. I have like some interesting points. Like last Thursday, we onboarded a new customer. On Saturday morning, our systems crashed because of the load, because it was a new use case. All of a sudden, we see tens of thousands of requests coming to our servers. Holy crap, what's going on? And the thing is, it was so helpful that once they started using it, all of a sudden, the flow is just incredible. And I think that's really, and Jan and I were like texting each other on Saturday morning and like trying to resolve the problem. A few hours later was fine. But I think it's really interesting to see, like, you open it up and it's the same building blocks as we've been using with other customers before, but now it's used in a different way. And I think that the ability to do that and to compose it with the customer that you're meeting is very powerful.
Now, as you reflect on this journey, what would you say has been the most important go-to-market decision that you've made so far?
Optimizing for speed when you start, because I think it helped me align my priorities, what to do, and maybe more importantly, what not to do, who to chase and who not to chase. Just not take that meeting. Don't take that meeting. Don't go to that conference. That's so important. And that also helps align the team about what to do and what not to do. Exactly that on a daily basis, and how to scale our systems and what's important. So I think really being able to kind of codify a core value is what was really helpful to kick that off. And it also a core value that aligns very well with the market and what the market is looking for in AI. I think the market is looking for that rapid adoption as well. And otherwise, it's not truly a venture backable company. I mean, there's talk about healthcare and how hard it is to fundraise in healthcare. It is. But is it hard to raise for a very fast growing company? No. I think even outside of healthcare, if you can show that traction, you can show that growth, and you can show that determination and conviction to reach that, I think you can raise money. So for us, it was also a decision. Are we going to be venture backed or not? And that's not a trivial decision for a second-time founder. I mean, we could just fund it ourselves, bootstrap, continue growing the business, and maybe have like a lower goal. But we decided to go for the moon. And I think it's been fun and exciting, and also aligns the team around that value of growing as fast as we can.
What is the moon? What does that look like? And this is our final question. Paint a picture for us. We can go as big as you want. We can go 3 years, we can go 5 years, we can go 10 years, like whatever timeline you want to look at, what does that future look like?
Yeah, I think that I envision a future where healthcare is delivered in a almost real-time fashion. There's less waiting, there's less questions, there's more care. And by the way, that unlocks also preventative care in a much better way. Like, if I'm diagnosed with sleep apnea, I don't need to wait for 3 weeks until I get a therapy. I can start working on that right now. And it doesn't take me actually also 6 months before I get the diagnosis. Like, I can actually shorten that timeline. So as soon as my wife tells me that I'm snoring and maybe I should look at that, check that out, I can actually finish all that journey and actually change my life almost instantly, instead of suffering for months or years trying to get a treatment scheduled. Like, I'm experiencing it myself even today, like in my healthcare journeys or whatever they are, my family. But imagine if that is so much more streamlined, even only administratively. Keep the clinical where it is, administratively. That's like such an amazing future. And I think if we can be a key player of performing that, I've done my job and I'll be very happy about my contribution to society by then. But I think that's really our goal. And beyond that, there are more things we're planning, but I'll leave that for maybe our next chat.
Yeah, we'll save it for part 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing, man. This has been so much fun. Really enjoyed this conversation. Before we wrap up, if there's any founders that are listening in, they want to follow along with you, where should they go?
Yeah, you can DM me on LinkedIn or Twitter, or reach out on our website. I'm very happy to chat with founders thinking about this space and building in this space. So thank you for the opportunity, Brett.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Okay, this was fun.
Yeah, man, that was an awesome conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.